Meridia spurs the Edaran defense forward, slowing the old city advance and giving a glimpse of hope to the still too slow new city evacuation. But will her bold, desperate rallying of the Edaran soldiers, along with every trick up her sleeve, be enough to stop the full force of the Freelanders? Well, we'll break down Season 2, Chapter 35, The Night's Last Star Part 2. But first, a message to our heroes of Edara.
Hey there, this is Colin, creator of the Seventh Valkyrie. If you're hearing this, it means you're listening to the public version of TABTA. And I really appreciate that. It keeps the algorithm happy, it keeps us growing. But if you want to get a little fun personal message every week with behind-the-scenes stories, funny little bits, other insight into the creative process, you can hop over to our Patreon and become a hero of Edara. You'll support the series, you can shape the future of the 7th Valkyrie, and find a whole lot of fun bonus content along the way. You can get started completely for free, and then if you decide you want to chip in and get bonus content, early access, and a whole lot more and help us along the path of heroes towards a whole lot of cool checkpoints, then you can do that. It's patreon.com/7th Valkyrie, that's 7THVALKYRIE, and give it a look. With that, on into the show.
Hey everyone, and welcome to TABTA, the adventure behind the adventure for the 7th Valkyrie, where we watch one series go from total obscurity to maybe 7 seasons in a movie, or maybe we just find the power of friendship along the way. I'm your host, Colin Sharp, creator and current voice of the 7th Valkyrie, and this week we are talking about The Night's Last Star Part 2. This is Season 2, Chapter 35. If you haven't heard the newest episode, hold off on this episode of TABTA until you've listened to it. You've been warned. All right, let's start with our first segment inside the episode where we talk about what happened, where we're going, give you a quick little recap of the episode. And this episode is where, well, things go from bad to worse. Meridia thinks she's still got the men to prevent the bleeding of this battle, but Krona had a trick up his sleeve. Division or two Edaran soldiers that betrayed the city in the final hour. They just dipped out, and now the last remnants of the Edaran Defense Force are doing their best to hold. And Meridia's sharp thinking and incredible skill with the bow obviously makes a quick impact. They are picking out weak points in the Freelander defense, or the Freelander attack. And she's got a bird's eye view, is incredibly smart when it comes to these kind of tactics and strategic things, and is reading the flow of battle, keeping the men at the bottom supplemented with timely adjustments. And it does slow and begin to work again, even though they're against, kind of backs up against the wall. And, Meridia's looking at the math. She's like, they're going to lose a lot of men, but, at the point where they're still firing and they're still up on the wall, there's still a chance that they're going to prevent, the total annihilation of this entire city and the evacuation happening. And then comes Nightmare, and the whole thing changes. And we really see the devastation from the opposition side, and the fear really that she strikes into the heart of Edarans. And so that brings us to talk a little bit more about this, to our segment outside the episode, where we get a little bit into the behind the scenes notes, production thoughts, and just kind of chat a little bit more openly about what's going on. Perspective and different perspectives and how you kind of cobble together the story from different perspectives is really important to the telling of the 7th Valkyrie. And it's been funny, as I've been adding more and more art to the series, I think that's sort of represented it well. I've gotten, all these different interpretations and images based on descriptions and lines from the book of how this collective mass of automated art sees these people, and there is this kind of, it's been interesting to see that there is a distinct identity to them, even though I'm not the one drawing the same artwork. We don't have a unified series of brand guidelines, because as you guys know, I'm not a visual artist, at least not yet. And it is interesting because, as a sidebar, the AI question always brings up interesting quandaries of hey, like this is a way that I'm creating new artwork, but I know from the technological side that a lot of this has been possibly curated from essentially stolen works from other people, and that's not good. And so how I feel about it is really interesting. And ultimately, once this series starts to pick up, I really want to start hiring artists from the community. Once I have the money within the series to do so, and bring people in to give their interpretations rather than the collective interpretation. Because for me, what I to bring it all the way back around to the perspectives, you have so many different these iconic figures in Edaran history that are important, making an important impact on the world around them and heavily involved in everything that's happening. But you see all these different perspectives of Val, of Meridia, of BC, of May, of Cyrus. You see them from the inside, from the outside, from their friend's perspective, from their enemy's perspective, from a neutral perspective. And as we see this impact of BC happening for the first time, after she has had her, soul-crushing moment in Something on the Wind, we're reminded that a hero and a monster can just be different sides of the same coin, different perspectives of the same figure, and that's kind of shown to us in brutal detail. I've always been interested when it comes to adventurous media, superhero fantasy, how the portrayal of violence is shown, whether it's just the action, do they relish it, do they dwell on it, do they punish you for enjoying. There's all sorts of ways that you can you can soften it, you can intensify it, you can drum it up. Sometimes it's just like brushed over, especially in like superhero media and fantasy media. Sometimes you get this very visceral depiction. An example I can think of that kind of almost even relishes the violence is a show like The Boys, which is all you can tell they really want to go into it. And I would say I sort of lean towards the middle, trying to give a sense of reality and of the elevated reality of what's happening. This, like, that stroke of midnight is pretty brutal. It kills hundreds of men, leaves them to die, and they don't die quick. It's brutal, punishing, and the same thing happens to the side of the city when she levels that strike. I think a good example of my favorite example of kind of taking these larger than life things and really giving them scale is actually one of the first Godzilla movies, the new ones from 2014 that had Bryan Cranston in it. I think there were some moments where they really captured kind of this awe-inspiring, breathtaking scale of things that are beyond human comprehension. And we see this kind of thing from Meridia's perspective. There's no sympathy in Natalia, and we don't feel for the human behind it. We just see the terror and the reality that BC fled away from, and that now everyone else has to face. And as this part of the chapter comes to a close, that shadow of terror and fear and death starts to rise over Reen, and things are looking really bleak. So from the brief flash of hope, all of a sudden Meridia and her men suddenly are forced to face the overwhelming threat and unforgiving realities of war against a city full of Freelanders and their allies. So how does this all play out? How does it all come crashing down? Well, you'll have to listen this Friday to Chapter 35, Season 2, Chapter 35, Part 3, The Night's Last Star. And I will see you guys at the end of this week. Take care, and much love. We're in the middle of an epic adventure, guys, and I can't wait for you guys to see how it continues to unfold. Bye. Have a great one.